Hello, my name is Michael, and today I'm going to be giving a visual timeline on Peter Bruegel, the Elder's art. So, Bruegel was born back in 1525 in the middle of the Flemish Renaissance. This was a time when Dutch art truly expanded tremendously, and it's quite beautiful to watch because Bruegel played quite a role in this. Just one key thing is that Bruegel is known for his landscaping primarily, and his 97 pieces of art that we have. There might be a couple others that were lost or destroyed over the century, but he still had 97, which I took just a few to examine. Just different themes of the themes I'm going to be covering is Italian, Bible based and seasonal pieces of art. But again, he's known for his landscaping, and each one of those themes is incorporated in his landscaping. One other thing that I should point out is that Bruel actually had a mentor, which is named Kocheke. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. That's just how I'm going to try to pronounce it. But Kocheke completely changed Bruegel's life, not only allowing him to marry his daughter, but also just mentoring him and helping him with his art style. So let's hop into his art in the next slide. So first, I'm going to be covering his Italian-based art. So it's important to know that Bruegel traveled through Italy between 1552 and 1556. And his first pieces of art were believed to be made in 1553. Now it's interesting because his mentor Kocheke also traveled through Italy, yet the art that he made doesn't hold the same similarities. We believe that Bruegel's work actually was based on a Low Countries point of view, down here, the Low Countries point of view, and it's just a theory, but it would make sense as during the 16th century, they obviously didn't have the same resources as us to travel. So, creating art back then was quite different, and they had to become a lot more creative. They couldn't just go anywhere. They didn't have the same resources as us. So, it's more likely that he did it from a Low Countries perspective or more just a coastal perspective. You especially see this in his landscape of the Alps right here being towards the bottom, and also his landscape of the fortified town. He's not extremely high up, like on these high mountains on my cursors that he's more at a lower level of ground. So that's just an interesting part that his first pieces of art were actually inspired by Italy and its landscaping. Next, I want to talk about his biblical art. Now, there's two pieces that I want to cover. It's the Tower of Babel and the Parable of the Sower. And I'm going to start with the Tower of Babel, just going from the oldest piece to the newest piece when it comes to the history it's based on. So, the Tower of Babel, he created this art piece in 1563, but the Tower of Babel has quite a significant past from the Bible, all going all the way back to Genesis 11. Basically, according to the Bible, men came together to build this giant tower reaching up to the heavens, and God was like, no, this is not going to happen, and he ended up dispersing them. And you notice Bruegel captures that quite visually towards the top. He makes an orangish color. It's quite a warm color at the top, and it highlights how it's not finished. It's still in the process of making, but it never gets finished because of what God did. And I just want to highlight two perspectives you could look at this art from. You could look at it from, oh, this is a beautiful piece of art. It's just, it could just be made up. I don't believe in the Bible, and that's completely fine. But also, there is a different perspective to look at from a Christian perspective regarding the seven deadly sins. The seven deadly sins are some of the major sins that believers of Christ belief that are just completely wrong. And one of them is pride. And I think that's what Bruegel was trying to capture here. Humans were trying to be prideful, making their way up to heaven. See, even past the clouds, they're going towards the heavens. And God just said no to that. And Bruegel kind of shows God's power through this art piece, just showing how magnificent and beautiful it looks, how beautiful even the sin of pride looks. So that's just another perspective you could look at from. The other art piece that I wanted to talk about was the parable of the sower. And it took me a while to actually understand what Bruegel was looking for or trying to go for when making this artwork. In case you don't know what the parable of the sower is, basically Jesus was teaching a crowd and he said a sower went and cast seeds in these different places. And when I first looked at this, I was like, oh, I see a man right here at the bottom left, and it looks like he's throwing something in dirt. Okay, that's one of the places that's covered in the Bible from either any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, or Luke. Not in John, but those three Gospels, you can find the story. And I was like, okay, what about the other places that Jesus was talking about? Well, Bruegel actually puts this in quite an interesting way. The rocks that Jesus cast seeds, it talked about the rocks that Jesus talked about casting seeds into are over here with the mountains. That's the representation. The sand is the beaches down here or even right here. The path is the pathway along the village. And then, of course, the thorns could just be the brush in the background. And I already talked about the soil. But it's quite interesting how Bruegel, he turns this parable into this complete and beautiful story. And you can just see just like traveling, even there's even a path right here that it's just like the sower could be traveling down. And it's quite beautiful how he does this. It's an amazing piece of art, and I truly wish I could see it in person. Finally, I want to talk about his seasonal artwork. Now, this artwork is quite amazing, and it immediately caught my eye. I chose just two of the pieces because I don't have enough time to talk about all of them. Those would be the Harvester between July and August, which was made in 1565, and the Hunters in the Snow, which was also made in 1565. So interestingly, it's made in the same year. And I thought the best way to look at these pieces was to compare and contrast them. So I find it interesting that for both of these pieces, Pieter actually uses the horizon line in the background to say just so much in the artwork. You notice the sun in the horizon line in the top left of the harvesters in between July and August. It creates this glaze where it just the background starts to fade, and over in our Hunters in the Snow, it's just the bleak, cold blue. It just creates this faded horizon over the mountains or maybe over here. It's beautiful how he does this, how he uses this to just create magnificent art that just brings it alive, as well as using so many people. I've noticed this in his artwork, but he uses all these many people, and it's like you're looking through a camera lens with a filter, and you're right there because it's so alive with having others in it. Some artists forget to include people, and that truly is what brings art alive. So I thought those were two very interesting and similar things, but obviously these are different seasons, so there'll be differences. The differences in color uses, the Harvesters uses more warm colors, giving it a summer feeling, while the Hunters in the Snow, it's white and blue. It kind of gives just this bleak and lifeless feeling. It feels cold and miserable. I mean, you see people are out and, they look like they're having fun maybe on the ice, and there's hunters up here. but it adds so much to the art and really develops its character. The other interesting difference between these pieces of art is just the nature because of the different seasons. You can see the dead trees with the snow on top and the hunters in the snow, but in the harvesters, the trees are alive. There's actually tons of detail and they're blooming and it looks beautiful along with the wheat. And it's just really interesting to see just the two difference, the major differences between the summer and winter, and just both of them are absolutely beautiful. And I just want to say thank you for listening to my little visual timeline. I hope you enjoyed and learned something, and you have a great rest of your day.